Hey YouTube, what is going on? It is Jax here back with another video, and today I'm going to do something I haven't done in about a year, I think. It's been about 10 months since I last did this. I'm going to go over the state of Clash Royale in my opinion. So I'll go ahead and get some replays running. And I'm just going to kind of talk about where I think the game is at, and I'm happy to say it's going to be a lot more positive than the last video. I know I had a lot to go over in the last video that was not as positive, but today I only have a few things that are really negative. And so I just wanted to make this video because I don't know. I honestly just feel like talking about it because there are some things I want to bring to light and some things I just want to give the team credit for. Like, they fixed a lot of things. I haven't watched my last video, but I know that we had a lot of issues with like content and updates as the last time I made this, which was like July 2021. And that's been fixed. They've updated the game quite a bit as of late, added champions, and that was the biggest update right there. The champions brought back so many players, got so many new players, just super fun. Level 14 as well. Even though a lot of people had complaints about level 14, I think it's honestly been much better than we expected, and I'm very happy that it has gone so well and brought so many players back to the game. It's super great to see the game thriving, and honestly, at this point, like, the game is pretty much the most fun it's been to play for me in a long time. I used to have not much enjoyment, or not as much enjoyment, I should say. I still enjoyed it, but like, it wasn't as fun to play ladder, and now I'm having quite a bit of fun, even if the balances, are sometimes a bit crazy, but more on balances in a little bit. And it's just great to see all this new content. There's so many special challenges, and even though I've been fully maxed now for like a few weeks, and like I wouldn't really play them, I still enjoy it because like it's fun game modes and stuff. And the game still brings me online every day. Like, there's not a day where I'm just not gonna play Clash. It's like, okay, well, if I have a little bit of free time and there's nothing else really for me to do, I'm gonna play some Clash. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, I mean, it's just very nice to see the game in this kind of state, um, much improved from where it was. And it's just great to see because played this game for so long. Like, it's definitely completely changed my life. Even though it is like a mobile game, it's like, oh, it's you playing a card game. I still really think it is a great game, one of the best, if not the best, mobile games, and it's super great to see it doing well. Okay, so that being said, there are a few things I want to go over, and I'll go over the balances first. So the balances are the first thing I'm going to reference here. It seems like almost everybody's complaining at this point, and so there's two parts to this. There's the actual balancing that's happening, and then there is the community being just absolute overreactors to every balance change that happens. Like, to be fair, we do go crazy. Like, every meta, we say this meta is awful or is the worst meta, and that X card needs an absolute nerf, and then it gets nerfed, and then we just move on to the next card that needs it, and it's like, never really give credit. But the reason I think this happens is they've added 107 cards to the game at the time of this recording, and the game started off having only like 50 or so, I believe. And so there's so many more new combinations, so many more synergies, so many more counters to cards that it's almost impossible to balance at this point. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous the amount of things you can do with the game. And no matter how you balance the game, no matter which cards you touch, there's always going to be some cards that, like, you just don't, there's always going to be some cards that are just super broken. There's going to be some cards that are super bad, and you're never going to be able to get a completely balanced game, especially at this size. I mean, I don't even think, even back when it was smaller and everybody's like, oh, I remember that was the golden age of like Three Musketeers, that meta was so good, or something like that, everybody remembering their favorite meta. The game was actually really balanced. There's always been something broken. And so I think at this point, the team should probably, like, in my opinion, I think the content needs to come from like other methods than just adding new cards, because I feel like the Mighty Miner is a cool card. It's got a bunch of new mechanics and stuff, but it's just going to be so hard to balance. Like, the more unique card concepts they add to make content for the players, the harder it's going to be to balance. Like, it's just going to keep getting more and more difficult to make healthy metas, especially for players in mid ladder who actually use pretty much every single card, even if the use rates are awful, as well as in top ladder, where the top ladder players will just adapt and take whichever of the new cards is the most broken and put it in a deck. And so I think, like, maybe not adding some cards, maybe I can't really like speak on this too much because I know that I can't personally think of much content to add, like I'd have to take a lot more time to think about that, to actually think of content they can add, and you have to consider, okay, well maybe there's a bug and they can't add it, or it conflicts with something in the game. Like, understand it's difficult to add, but I think that just adding new cards to make content is just going to continue to make this game more difficult to balance. And it's already impossible to please everyone, but soon it will be impossible to please a majority, just because like a few people will be using really good cards and everybody else is going to hate that card. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's just like, well, what do I do now? Because I've just got so many cards that I can't really balance, and I'm adding more, and I'm just making it even more complex to balance the game. And so I think like just trying not to add too many cards to make balancing simpler is the play, in my opinion. And I also think the community at this point, some of us, we just got to learn to deal with it. Like a while ago, like 5 or 6 months ago, I just kind of gave up on being like, okay, please balance the deck or please balance the game this way, because we've seen quite a few balance changes where like to accommodate as many as they can, they haven't made the changes that like almost the entire top level community's been asking for. And so at this point, I just try and like go through with whatever it is. Of course, P.E.K.K.A has not been very great in the meta. In fact, it's probably one of the worst it's ever been, and we say that really often, but I honestly have not seen like any players. And of course, many of you know that Carpy, who's the best player, Fat Cat, has not been high on ladder. He's actually retired from the game because of the state of the game. And like, while we've gotten a new influx of a lot of players, Carpy is the dude that's battled through like every single meta, no matter how bad it was, and now he's the one that's like decided to call it quits. It's just kind of crazy. So that's just my little thought on balance. I just think that the balancing needs to chill out, or the adding of cards needs to chill out so they can balance the game. Maybe get it as close to balance as they can. And the next thought I have is like the conflict now between the interests of top and mid-ladder players. It had been known for a really long time that like mid-ladder players kind of dislike the top ladder players for always using meta and not being creative, and just like saying that it's not even skilled because they didn't even make their own deck. And top ladder players are like, why do mid-ladder players have an E-Giant, P.E.K.K.A, Mega Knight, and E-Barbs all in their deck? And honestly, I've been in both situations. I haven't been in mid-ladder like due to the fact that I was like not ready to push out into top ladder or my card levels for like 2 years now. It's been quite a while since I maxed out P.E.K.K.A bridge spam and started getting ranked on ladder. And I just remember like, I think that once you try and consider both perspectives, they're just never going to line up. Because the mid-ladder players, honestly, I'm not sure what they really like in balancing of the game. I just understand that they dislike facing like 2.6 and P.E.K.K.A bridge spam and Expo and Log Bait and all those meta decks over and over. And the big question comes from whose opinion should we value more, because top ladder players, they've played the game at the highest level. They know the game the best. They can make balances. Like when a card is broken at top ladder, you can be pretty sure it's broken because the top ladder players know the best combinations for each card. So they know if like a card is like really good because they've had so much experience with it. And so you can kind of be not guaranteed, but you can at least be a little more sure that if a top ladder player knows that the card is broken, well, they also know all the best combos for the cards that are supposed to counter. And if they're not doing well, then it's kind of broken. But on the same hand, it might not be used very much in mid ladder. I think the common example of this is like, what is it? Skeletons. Okay, so skeletons maybe not broken. Kind of difficult to tell, honestly. I actually personally don't think they're broken, but there's a decent argument to be had. They're very little, like there's not much usage of that in mid ladder. And so it can be kind of difficult to say, okay, well, mid-ladder players, why is this, like, they'll be like, why is the skeletons getting nerfed? And the top ladder players will be like, well, why are they buffing a card? I can't remember, maybe like Barb Hut. Actually, Barb Hut's actually not used anywhere. Why are they nerfing a card like Mega Knight, for example? In mid-ladder, it's definitely been a high consensus that the Mega Knight nerf was really, or top ladder, I should say, Mega Knight nerf was really not needed. Like, it was just a very bad change because the Mega Knight was actually like balanced. It was the Archer Queen and all that making broken, but of course you find out mid ladder has like 1,000 Mega Knights per 1,000 games. Like it's 100% use rate or something. It's not 100%, but it's something crazy. And it's just kind of difficult to be like, okay, well, who should I listen to? Should I listen to the top ladder players who know the game the best but make up a tiny percentage of the player base, or should we listen to the mid ladder players who make up the biggest percentage of the player base, but like the problem is with them, Mega Knight, they spam into it, they give it a bunch of value, and that's mostly why people thought it was broken, to be honest. So my opinion on that is, I mean, I would just love to say it because I'm a top ladder player now. I'm no longer stuck in mid ladder on my main fully maxed account. I would really like to say, just like, listen to top ladder players. Of course, we know the game the best. Like, you should definitely listen because we know which cards are actually broken. But it's hard to tell. Like, I just don't want to come out and say that completely, and I just want to like make sure the team is like kind of aware of this. They're definitely aware of this, but like, you see very few top ladder players on Reddit contributing to those kinds of opinions. But Reddit is a huge like social media platform. Like, it's got the most like diversity of players on Clash Royale social media, even though many people just don't even use it very much. So I don't even know where I was really going with this tangent, honestly. I just wanted to speak on that issue a little bit. And honestly, I wanted to get off my chest a little bit. I hate when people try and control the decks played. And mid-ladder players will be like, yes, thank you. Why should people play meta decks? Like, don't try and control us. But the mid-ladder players, I also see it's frustrating. They also are like, okay, well, stop using meta decks. You're really uncreative, and you shouldn't be using meta decks. And then they'll also come around and say, stop trying to tell me which deck I should play. Everybody should just be able to play what they find fun. People are like, how do you find copying decks and being uncreative fun? Well, I personally just don't like putting myself at like a disadvantage to be using like a really known bad deck. And I also really like using just one deck, especially P.E.K.K.A. Bridge Spam, where there's like a wealth of other knowledge to learn from, but also finding it out for myself using the one deck and becoming as good as I possibly can with it. That's how I find fun. I don't really find as much fun and just using whatever random BS to try and push up. Like, if I'm not pushing up very high, it's less fun for me. So that's like the perspective of meta deck users. We really just enjoy becoming good with our chosen deck. It's so satisfying, and it's really, really nice just to be able to keep finding new interactions and stuff. You don't have to be like always worried about, oh, well, my hand costs 8 elixir because I have like E-Giant, P.E.K.K.A, 3 Musketeers, and a Golem, and just lose games off of that. I like to be like, okay, well, more likely I made a mistake with something. I could have managed my elixir more efficiently. And that's just a perspective I wanted to give. Okay, so with that out of the way, let me know what you guys think about the mid-ladder thing. Probably form my opinion based off of what a lot of other people are saying in this situation only, in this situation, because it's just really difficult for me to come out and say which side I agree with. You know what I prefer, and I want to hear what you guys think. Okay, the last part of this that I really want to go over, and this is going to be the most negative part of the video, but that is the Clash Royale esports scene. There's almost nothing really incredibly positive to say about it at the moment, which is really unfortunate because some of my favorite memories, one of my favorite memories from Clash Royale is watching I think it was the 2019 World Finals, where Surgical Goblin pulled off the 1 HP win against Morton. Team Liquid ended up winning that. I watched all 2 days of it for like 8 hours at a time. I just had an off weekend, and it was one of the most enjoyable experiences that I've had, especially like watching competitive Clash Royale. It was just so much fun. The production value was so good. There was so much hype surrounding it. Each match was absolutely insane and was really entertaining. And having the team format really like gave me an attachment to, like, I really was a fan of SK. OP Sam and Morton, their combination in 2v2 was just so fun. You could see them having so much fun with it. And you could also see, like, when Sam would reverse sweep or Javi 14 would just go absolutely crazy on a bunch of opponents, like how much fun they were having and how fun it was to just watch SK and all their different personalities. And now it's harder to root for one player in the new format. But my main issue with it is this year's handling of CRL. I think I've heard from like different areas that Supercell wants people to become content creators, but they have, and like they want people to stop being like professional players and more content creators. But I just have like a huge problem if this is the case with how they're like just running CRL, because they're still putting up large amounts of prize pools for it. But the past 2 years especially, there's just been so many bugs with CRL. Like, there's just been so much like different things. I forget last year what the big problem was. I think it was like the amount of time brackets took. It took a really long time to get into the monthly finals, and like the tiebreaker system was like really like just kind of difficult to understand. But this year, didn't even release the schedule for CRL at all. Like at the time of this recording, I still don't know all of the golden ticket tournaments for World Finals and their date. I think the format for golden tickets to CRL is honestly kind of cool, and the fact they're involving the community is really sick. Like the community tournaments, we know Revel Imar, if you are aware of him, he puts together absolutely amazing tournaments with huge production quality, like or production value. They're super well produced. The problem is we have no clue what's going on, and some of these tournaments have really interesting qualifying systems. Like, they're using like what's it called, open tournaments, and the tournament tab is like a qualifying system, which of course if you want to give people a chance, sure, but like there used to be like, oh, you actually have a chance to qualify when most people are not really going to. And I'm glad they're giving an open source, but like there are some pro players who have to go through like an hour-long tournament where they could easily just get starting handed by an Elixir Golem Rage player and get knocked out, taking 2 or 3 losses early, and not even have a chance to get into the next group, the bracket stage, with his best of 3s and best of 5s where they shine. But that's just like one of the parts. Right now there is the ESL Golden Ticket Qualifier happening, and this tournament honestly is just being poorly run. I've seen multiple people that just get disqualified because their opponent will not show up, but the admin or doesn't even show up, and the opponent says that the opponent that didn't show up will eventually say that the person there didn't show up even when they just didn't accept the challenge, and the person who was actually ready to accept the match gets disqualified while the person who should have been disqualified gets to move on. And the admins have been responding very slowly to issues, and it's just very sad to see such a big league like CRL not being run very well. Like, so many of these golden ticket tournaments just seem like they have, or not the golden, but like this format seems like it has no effort put into it. It's hard to really root for players because you can't even tell if your favorite player is going to make it through to the next round, or if they're going to get like BS'd out of something. And it's just really sad to see, considering like the amount of effort and time and all of that resources that went into producing like the older team version CRL formats. And I understand they're not going to bring back teams. I'm sad, but I can get over it. I just wish that if they're not going to bring back teams, or they're not really going to focus like too much, or actually I do want them to focus, I just want them to like keep that effort for CRL there. It's super sad to see such a really fun league just not really seeming to have the effort there. Like, that's basically all I can really say. These formats and tournaments seem like they're just really unorganized. Not like the tournaments themselves. I know Revel Imar and others are really putting in a ton of effort to make their tournaments good, but they have to like follow the duels format and different ways that Supercell wants people to qualify. And it seems like Supercell did not really put in a whole great effort in planning out exactly what they wanted to happen, and it's just kind of sad to see. So those are my thoughts on the state of the game right now. Overall, I'm really happy with it. Like, I don't want to make this, like, my longest parts have been pretty negative sounding. There's just like, it's difficult to talk about all the positives because, well, like the positives, they didn't really do a bunch of different small things to fix the game. They actually did the big solutions that were required and fixed it. And it's been phenomenal. But everybody's already really spoken on that. It's hard to add new stuff to the conversation. I just want to make sure like they get the credit for what they did. They made this game like much more popular than it has been, much more entertaining for a lot of people than it has been, and you have to give them props for that. The only negatives are just thinking, maybe I'd like to see in the next improvements. So with that out of the way, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I kind of just rambled. There was no really script to this, if you probably could tell. But I just wanted to go ahead and give my thoughts on Clash Royale, maybe a few surface level ideas on how to improve it. And with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video and have a great rest of your day. I will see you in the next one. Peace.